Back in 1993, the first fairy tale slasher film, Leprechaun, was not only innovative for its time, but it also made back a ton of money for a relatively new studio, Trimark Pictures. Leprechaun made back 10 times its budget, and that's not even counting the home market, where it sold like hotcakes at video rental stores. Not only would Trimark run the IP of Leprechaun into the ground, and into space, and then eventually into the hood, twice, but they would also try to recreate the success with different IPs. And while some new IPs were sequel-worthy, like The Dentist, Warlock, and Turbulence, not all were considered successful. While the writer and director of the first Leprechaun, Mark Jones, was interested in returning to the Leprechaun sequel, his friction with Trimark producers on the first film spilled over into this one. He wrote a script, but it was denied. Mark got the sense that they wouldn't let him direct it, so he took his talents to Dino De Laurentiis to write and direct his next installment into the fairy tale slasher subgenre. But that's a review for later, possibly another day. Looks like you're gonna have to subscribe if you want me to talk about that one. Since public interest was waning on the Leprechaun franchise by the mid-90s, Trimark decided to make another entry into the fairy tale slasher subgenre in hopes of capturing lightning in a bottle for a second time. They took the story of Pinocchio and decided, hey, that little wooden puppet boy? Yeah, that would make an awesome slasher villain. Was this another hit for Trimark Pictures, fully cementing the fairy tale slasher genre, or was their attempt in vain? I think you already know the answer, but let's dig into this one and find out. 1996's Pinocchio's Revenge starts in a thunderstorm. And holy crap, Kevin Tenney directed this? I love him. He made Night of the Demons, Witch Trap, Witchboard, The Cellar. He really established a name for himself in the horror community by this point. He was a much more established director than Mark Jones was when he made Leprechaun, so no wonder why the studio went with Kevin. His movies are always a good time, so let's hope Pinocchio's Revenge lives up to the hype. This older man is digging a hole in the rain to bury a child-sized sack. Luckily, a police officer is able to intervene, but not before the body was buried. In the morning, the cops dig up the sack, but what's this?
What is that? The hell have we got here, huh?
It's Pinocchio. And yeah, this movie is full frame and a bit blurry. You see, Pinocchio's Revenge never got a Blu-ray release. Instead, we're stuck with a 720p full frame DVD crap. Yeah, Pinocchio might not be scary yet, but this aspect ratio is. For the rest of the film, we follow Jennifer, a lawyer who is defending the trenchcoat man from the opening named Vincent Gatto. You see, Gatto is not only convicted of harming his own son, but it's also been applied that he hurt other children too. Now, I'm dancing around how serious these crimes actually were, and that's because YouTube doesn't like when kids sleep forever. Jennifer is trying to convince the court that Gatto is innocent and is hiding the real identity of the killer. She puts a lot of time and effort into this. Meanwhile, at home, her daughter Zoe is being ignored by her. Well, despite her best efforts, Jennifer fails and Gatto is sentenced to the electric chair. And after watching him fry, she goes to a church, meets a priest, buys him a coffee, and trauma dumps on him.
You know, I deal with a lot of bad people in my job, and I put a lot of them on the street.
Jennifer finds Gatto's puppet in her office. Now, Gatto made this puppet for her son. And for being a killer doll movie, I love this approach. A slow burn court drama with legit mystery.
How could the man who made this have murdered his only child?
Evil comes in all shapes and sizes.
Young Zoe's birthday comes up, and David, Jennifer's friend with a benefit, thought the puppet was a gift. Well, now Zoe owns Pinocchio. If David looks familiar, that's because he's in another Kevin Tenney film, Witchboard, which I covered already. Shameless plug. David appears to be a nice guy, but he's secretly a jerk because he tries to scare Zoe with Pinocchio. dude. She's like 5 years old. Don't scare her with her brand new toy. Well, I guess Pinocchio is a bit scary on his own. Always popping up, talking to Zoe. But when is he gonna, start killing people? During this section of the film, it plays with the idea that Zoe is actually the one hurting people and is using Pinocchio as a scapegoat to hide her hidden trauma. This idea is honestly done much better in Pinocchio's Revenge than it was at the beginning of Child's Play. While it's a super interesting approach, we all know where this is going. Right? Do we? I don't know anymore. The film goes to great lengths to try to convince you that Zoe is going crazy. She has a real conversation with Pinocchio, but it was filmed by the doctor, and in the video, she was just talking to herself. Well, people who Zoe has a beef with start dying. All the kills are filmed in a way where you can't see who is committing the act. Is the doll just a catalyst for evil? An ancient doll given to children to corrupt them to commit murder? Is Zoe behind the killings, or is it Pinocchio? Is the doll truly alive and seeking its revenge? Find out in Pinocchio's Revenge. I gotta say, that's not what I thought I was gonna watch.
And the soul of a murderer may have found a new home.
Watching the trailer and looking at the box art, you think you're gonna get a bottom-of-the-barrel slasher film starring a popular, yet public domain IP, but, that's not what you get at all. Pinocchio's Revenge tries to be different. Very different. It's closer to a thriller than a slasher, but the slasher foundation is there. It's psychological and it tries to be atmospheric. I applaud the efforts, but the final outcome misses the mark for me. I'm not sure if the Pinocchio IP fits this type of film. A generic doll could have been more interesting than this. I just feel like the cultural idea of Pinocchio is ingrained from Disney. He wants to be a real boy. We know his motivations, but here, it's a bit muddled. I get that Pinocchio was relatively big at the time with The Adventures of Pinocchio being released the same year, 1996, starring Jonathan Taylor Thomas. That movie cost roughly $25 million. So I understand the appeal to make a Pinocchio horror film at that time to hopefully ride the success of the bigger budget picture. And honestly, the approach they went with almost works. If themes were elaborated on more, you might have a pretty good and twisted movie on your hands. Maybe a different title could have helped. Pinocchio's Revenge is just a dumb name. Revenge? Revenge for what? Revenge is so action-focused, and this movie has little to no action. The film was originally going to be called Pinocchio Syndrome, and that's a much better title. It sets up the expectations a little bit better, and it leans closer to the psychological side. It's a shame that the studio pushed for the revenge aspect. This movie is in this weird limbo state where it wants to push for the slasher aspects in its advertising, but the meat of the film is so anti that. It's weird because in the trailer, Pinocchio's voice is actually Zoe's voice.
Give me life. What I have to do? Cut my strings.
Which would have worked much better, but unfortunately the film went with this voice.
Give me life. What I have to do? Cut my strings.
And it just sounds awkward. It's clear that the studio didn't even know what direction they wanted to take the movie in. If you go in with the right expectations, Pinocchio's Revenge can be a good time. If you're expecting a killer doll type slasher, unfortunately you'll have to look elsewhere. Viewer expectations can make or break a movie. I wish they either went full slasher or full psychological horror. Either way, the final product would have been much more enjoyable. In 1996, Trimark Pictures took a swing at expanding their horror catalog with Pinocchio's Revenge, a dark and twisted take on a classic children's tale. But despite its promise, the film missed the mark, failing to capture the campy magic or cult appeal of their surprise hit series, Leprechaun. It felt like an internal competition, a complete misfire from the very studio that struck fairy tale gold. But what about Mark Jones, the mastermind behind the Leprechaun and arguably the godfather of the fairy tale slasher subgenre? Did he manage to carve out another cult classic, Or did his follow-up fall victim to his creation's own shadow? Oh no. Sounds like this review's too big for just myself. I guess I'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks so much for watching. And stay spooky, everyone.